You're a liar.
Oh, you posted it today, right?
No, I posted it like a week ago.
Where you put them?
On the DiveTribe homepage. They're all listed there.
I've never gone there.
You've never gone there. I'm gonna record this for posterity. Hold on a second. Where's my? I know what I'm doing.
Hey, Casey, I got your boat trimmed out today.
Well, that's great.
I get it the hell out of the shop this week.
Hey, Dave.
Sure.
Is your address on the list of captains correct for your house?
835 Holly Hedge?
I think so, yeah.
Well, I know so.
No, I'm saying I think that's what's on there.
And
I want to send you something.
do I have to dunk it in water for 24 hours?
No. This is Frank. You remember when you soldered my antenna?
Yeah.
At Groton?
Yeah.
And I lent you those pliers that strip the wire?
Yeah.
I got you a pair.
Ooh.
That's to say thank you for doing my wire.
All right. Hey, but before I forget, just for everybody for future use, you guys are all DiveTribe members, or otherwise you wouldn't be here. But for those of you that forgot, to figure out, first of all, it's on the events calendar when these are. So hey, it's the 26th, and hey, look, DiveTribe at 3 o'clock. It's amazing. So if I know in advance I'm going to be out of the shop, I put it in the events calendar and I'll change it. So this is where you look to see where they're coming up. So don't rely on my emails. Those are babysitting measures for those of you that don't look at the calendar like you're supposed to.
No, I always look at the calendar.
No.
All right. So if you go to the DiveTribe link right here on the top and you scroll down there, DiveTribe home. This is the home page. If you're signed in, which is up here, you'll be able to come here. If you're not, it'll say, hey, you need to sign in. This is the link to the meeting. Now, I haven't changed this. It's the same one for like forever, but I'm not going to guarantee that because people can hand this out and any Joe Blow could show up. So just bear that in mind. This is the link you should be clicking on to get into the meetings. But back to what we were originally talking about, this is the video archive section here. So we got all of the meetings in there.
Yeah,
hey, look, January 15th.
Yeah, but that's not the last one.
Why is it not the last one? What's 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago is the middle of February.
Oh, you're right. I don't know. Maybe it's in there. I'll find it. I'll look. It's got to be recorded somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. I retract my attempt at humiliating you. All right, but this is where they're all posted. So these are YouTube links, and then you can click on them, and only people who have the link can view them. So there you go.
Last I looked, you didn't have the dates for the subfest in there.
No, that's because I haven't locked it in yet.
Okay.
In theory, it'll be the same third weekend of September, if you want to put that as a tentative hold spot on your calendars.
Right.
I got people emailing me, like, send me the link to the meeting. Just went through this, Jesus. All right, there we go. Oh, we still got 5 minutes before we officially start.
Hey, Bob.
Yes, Nick.
Oh, I just signed in, but why were you showing the DiveTribe video link page thing there?
Just for those people that weren't aware that like we are recording these and not just, you know, keeping them for posterity, but anybody who misses a meeting can go to that page and you'll be able to see what you missed.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yep. You bet. And I'm lucky I have not, as of yet, had to go back in and cull out anything before it was posted.
We're just not trying hard enough.
No, that
I've got a question about your 70 millimeter watertight compartment.
That's not my 70 milliliter watertight compartment.
Okay, the on the end of this tube, you were saying this will go up inside the sail, right up as far as you can get it.
Yeah, and you hang it kind of dangling like a pear. Yep.
You're hanging it down.
Yep.
Okay, and then just as uptight as you can possibly get it at that point.
I just posted onto the product page on my site the actual verbiage from the manufacturer of those cylinders about the methodology of the ballast system. And
Okay.
Dave, you know, I'm kind of baffled at this a little bit. Here, I'm gonna pull it up and see if you can wrap your head around this. Maybe Ron will show up today. That would be kind of cool. But let me pull it up. See if you can understand this, because I don't fully understand it myself. I haven't built one of these cylinders. I haven't installed one of these cylinders. But it looks like it's just a two-way pump, like a gear pump in there that pumps water to and fro into the ballast tank. But he's got it plumbed in a really interesting way. So let me get to where we need to be here. All right, is everybody ready? We need to use our collective intellectual horsepower here. Are you ready? All right. So the valve, which is that float valve thing, that's a snorkel. So there's like a float valve in there, and it when the water's up, it stops air from moving through it. Okay, that needs to be located above the water line. It does not matter where, so long as it is above. Okay, so far so good. The pump fills the ballast tank up to the horizontal baffle. Any overfill simply goes out of the vent. Now I have to share this now, because this isn't going to make sense to anybody unless you look at it. For those of you that are unaware, this is Ron Perot's ballast system out of the UK. So this is the ballast tank. So the air inlet is on the top. Everybody see that one? This pulls in from the outside of the cylinders, plumbed directly into an air line that goes up into that snorkel. So, well, now I lost my ability to read. Pump fills the ballast tank to that horizontal baffle right here. Any overfill goes out the vent. Okay, that makes sense. The water's filling from the bottom. The water pump is pumping water in, fills it up, and then if it gets up to here, it hits that and squirts out the snorkel in the top. Okay, so far so good. We're underneath the water. So to surface, reverse the pump. The valve allows a small amount of water to re-enter the ballast tank when surfacing. And that leak is important, as it allows the pump to work. If there is a perfect seal, then you will get a hydraulic lock, and this will prevent the pump from emptying the tank. That I don't wrap my brain around. I can't understand that. As the tank's emptying, negative pressure is generated within the ballast tank. Yep, this will be equalized as soon as the valve breaks surface. Yep, understand that.
He's talking about priming the pump.
The weird thing though is, you know, I understand that. Like, here's the pump, and actually there's a better picture of it somewhere. Right here, yeah. So you've got, this is where it pumps water in, goes into the pump, and then shoots out, squirts it into the ballast tank. And then to surface, it goes the other way, pulls water through here and squirts it out here. So it's not, you know, it's the water acting on the air in the top that pulls the air through this air intake at the top. So so basically there's water in that pump at all times.
It's a gear pump, right?
I think so.
Well, gear pumps leak. And he wants water in there to ensure that you don't get airbound.
Okay. Well, there you go, Rob. That's an in-depth look at the how's-he, what's-its of this ballast system. So basically, ignoring how it actually works, from an installation perspective, just put the who's he what's it up in the top of your tower as high as you can get it, and have the dangly thing dangling. I use the word pair. I know everybody's mind was going somewhere else. Hang the pair up in the top of the tower, and you should be good.
Consider your audience, Bob.
Yep, I know. That's why.
Okay, thank you. We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, it's super simple, and you know, the reason I feel good about it is because Ron's been building them this way for 20 years, and
You know, Bob, the SAS system has never embarrassed anybody.
no, sure. I wasn't knocking your SAS system, but some jerk decided to retire on me, and now I got to buy my cylinders from the UK. But I like them. They're really like Rob. You can attest to this. They're slick looking units, right? They're well engineered. They have really good fitment. There's laser cut parts. They're really nice.
Yes, I pretty well got mine all together. I did make a error in judgment or something here, but I did burn out the switch. And don't ask me how, but other than I miswired it. That's all I can say. And that's why I sent you that email where maybe you should, if you got some way of, for those that are just getting into this, to learn how to wire them up. But what I did, I eliminated the switch because I burned it up. And then I went in and used the 2 switches on the speed controls. I mounted them in the back here so that I can, when I take the cap off to, you know, to charge the battery and everything, or to set it up to go, then I just turn those 2 switches either on or off, depending on what I'm doing. And that'll work out great. So those 2 switches on the ESCs are really usable here in this situation because I screwed up my switch. The only other thing I found was, with everything that's going on in this compartment for the battery, I am going to have to, I tried to do the mechanics to get to my forward dive planes by putting the servo inside, but then that relinquished a lot of space for everything else I needed in there. So I am going to go with a
waterproof servo. Yeah,
and go to the exterior on it and just mount it to the end cap itself, and then go right direct, because the dive planes on this Alta are just right almost within about 3/4 of an inch of the end cap is where the supply would be coming across. So I'm going to have to go out off the servo and go back towards the bow section and then come back to the linkage.
Yeah,
And that should work great. And I'll mount the servo that way. So
yeah, sure. So and I've done that exterior waterproof servo mount thing on his 80 mil. Super easy. I just made a mounting block and the servo bolts right to it, and just pop the wires going through into the cylinder, and you're off to the races.
yeah, other than that, Bob, everything on it is great. The servo's mounted up. I had to put a little crank in the servos in order to meet my, you know, lengths and that on the stern section. But it's a great little setup, I think, for, you know, for a beginner. I think it would make a good little system to get started in. So
Yeah. No, I like him, and he's been great to work with so far. So, hey, and I picked up, I think I was telling you guys, I picked up a couple of his little aquabats. Have you guys seen those? I picked up a couple of those. I need to build one, but you know, we keep talking about cheap entry level boats, and these are, you know, like in the hundreds of dollars range. And it's full static diving. It's not like it's just a toy. It's got a full ballast system in there and everything. So I just got to build one up so that people know how to put them together. The instructions are a little iffy, but I think once you put it together, you know, it was like we were talking about for the Neptune. You know, if we could get some bolt-on bodies for these things to dress them up a little bit or allow some customization, it might be kind of a cool, you know, gateway drug for newbies coming into the hobby. So watch that.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out what Steve's doing.
Which Steve, are you talking about Hodges?
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Ignore me. I'm at Daryl's and everything is chaos right now.
Sorry, I thought you meant this, Steve, and I'm eating celery, and I didn't think anybody wanted to know that, so.
Yeah. Oh, hey, reminder for everyone, we're still a go for anybody within striking distance of Texas for March 19th. If you want to come down, bring your boats, doing our trim party. Ed was the one who introduced me to this idea of a trim party. So it's the beginning of season opportunity to get your boats trimmed up and ready for summertime operations. So we're going to spend the morning trimming out in the pool at my place, head out to the pond, have some fun running it out there, and then come back for steaks and beers and wrap up the day. So that's March 19th for anybody who wants to head out here. Steve Hodges, I'm super excited. He's coming all the way from Georgia to come hang out with us. He shipped me his boats in a gigantic sonotube. So we don't know what's in the tube, but we know that a tube made it here without much evidence of physical.
What's in the tube is what's behind me in the picture.
There we go.
Is that Columbia? Or,
My thresher.
oh, the Thresher, okay.
There you go. Open invitation for everybody. And hey, if you can't bring a boat and you just want to fly out, that's on the table as well. Like there's going to be lots of people and lots of boats. I don't think you'd have any problem finding something to run. So
Will you pick us up in your airplane?
well, so I'm actually going to be removing the rear seats from my plane so that I can fit boats in the back. I figure I've got almost 7 feet, 6 or 7 feet of room, and it's almost 5 feet wide. So there's actually quite a bit of room back there. The only catch is the access door is a triangle that's maybe like 2 feet by 18 inches and down. So it takes some creative entry to get the submarine into the cargo compartment of the airplane, but it's in for annual right now. This is where all aviators sit with sphincters clenched and fingers crossed and hope that it's going to be nothing found that's going to knock it out of your financial ability to repair.
I guess there's no getting those carriers that you see on top of the cars.
No, I was thinking about that. That would be awesome though.
Yeah, put them under the plane like a torpedo bomber.
Yeah. You could make it happen.
Hey, Bob, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, my name's Bill Bebo from Athens, Georgia.
Mr. Bill.
I'm from Georgia, but Steve is from North Carolina.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He just spends a lot of time in Georgia.
Yeah. Was that the 80 millimeter WTC you were talking about a minute ago?
It's Rob's got I think the 70, but they both use the exact same ballast system. So yeah, it's all applicable, same thing.
Okay, because I built the one that I bought from you.
Yeah.
But it took me 5 times to get it right. But once I know the secret, it's going to be a wonderful little rig.
Okay.
The switch, the on and off switch, I'm sorry, it's a piece of garbage. I soldered my wire to it and the lead came right out of the switch.
That's no good.
And when you push on it, the little bracket, if you can remember that gray bracket, that moves with it. That's going to break eventually. So I just bought a waterproof switch and put it in the other end so I wouldn't have to run the wires all the way through the boat.
Sure.
So, and it's a better one, and it works out that much less wire in that little tube that goes between them.
Yeah. Yep.
but it is gonna be nice that, it should be sold as a kit. Because
Oh.
if you solder the wires on the motor, you have to take the servos out to do that.
Okay,
You can't, without burning something up. And then to run your wires safely and easily, I took them 2 gray brackets, I don't know what you call them, but that hold everything, that's held on with 2 screws. I
Mhm.
took them right off, and my wire went right through, lined up nice, and it come out perfect. And it's
okay,
easy to do once you know you do it.
yeah. Oh, I want to back up just before I forget. So, Rob, I was going to say something and I got sidetracked.
Well, yeah, I've got a question on that switch wiring. For some reason, now I probably did it wrong. I'm going to be upfront about it. I took my hot and negative lead and went straight to the switch. And about the time I did that and plugged in my 11.1 LiPo battery, my whole bench was just smoke.
So a switch is basically just a break in a wire, for lack of a better term. It's like snipping a wire and pulling them apart and then connecting them together. So the only thing you needed to attach to that switch was your positive lead from the battery, and then it just continued out the other end of the switch into your like speed controller or wherever it was going. If you attach a negative, as soon as you turn it on, it creates a short and poof, away you go.
So you're going in positive on both sides, but one's going in, the other's coming out, correct?
It just goes right in line with the positive going through both. Yep.
Well, this was a real dumb beginner's wiring situation because I smoked it immediately.
You know what? If I would have told you that, you would have wired it and then forgot about it, but I'm going to be willing to bet you'll never do it again, right?
You got that? My wife was about ready to call the fire department.
So I want to back up a little bit though, because you were saying you're utilizing the existing switches on those Mtronics Viper ESCs, right?
Yes.
So you can, and I've done this lots before, it works really, really good. So rather than having to open up the cylinder and flip the switch and then close it and put it in the meantime, your cylinder's on all of this time and your poor pitch controller's like freaking out because you're moving it all over the place. If you just grab like a 1/16 seal from me or Make One or whatever you want to do, put it in the bulkhead, run a little piece of 16-inch brass rod out to that switch so that you can move it in and out, then you can turn your cylinder on and off from outside your cylinder just by flicking that piece of brass rod forward and backward.
Yeah, I see your point. But
hey, Rob.
Yes.
What smoke? The wire? You should have had a fuse someplace in there.
Oh boy, yeah. It took the both leads, the positive and negative, all the way back to the battery and the switch.
Yeah, you should have right off the battery. There should be a fuse right away.
Well, yeah, but I wired it wrong totally. I looked at it and I thought, well, hold it. Maybe this switch has got a deal in it where, well, never mind. I fouled it up.
I think the point that Frank is trying to make, before you ever connect a hot battery to your system, you should always have an inline fuse.
Yeah, because that'd take up all that smoke.
That's what I do.
That would have stopped.
Yeah.
Because I never know on anything.
And to that point, there's different ways of doing it. This is a good topic. This is useful for everybody. So there's a bunch of different ways of going about it. So you can put a mechanical, like a hard, like automotive style fuse in there. And I sell the little micro ones that you sell, the little plated ones that you press in. Or like a lot of the remote switches come with built-in fuses. So like the MM15, which by the way, the MM10 is gone. The 10 amp magnetic switch, Kevin's done away with those. They're all 15 amp rated now. So that has a built-in fuse. The Marine Viper 10, I believe, has a built-in fuse. The heavy duty switch that I sell has a built-in fuse. So provided you're going battery, switch, boat, you're gonna be okay. You just need to make sure all the good stuff is on the other side. You got battery, and then you protect it with the fuse, and then all the expensive stuff that goes on the other side. So yeah, make sure that however you're wiring your boat up, it's not solid state with going straight through. I posted a picture, I think I found it on like one of my old blog ones, with my burnt fingers. I was holding a wire and I connected it, and it shorted out, and it fused the plastic from the wire onto my fingers. I had stripes going down. Yep.
You're never gonna do that again.
Battle scars, exactly. If you think the sparks and smoke got you doing, try and burn your fingers off. That'll teach you.
Well, I'll tell you, I was sure reaching for wires, getting that thing unplugged.
Yep.
But it worked out, and yeah, I'm very happy with being able to use those switches in the back, because I always pull my end caps anyway after I've run the boat. That's the way I store it, with the end caps off. And then you've got to recharge the battery, so you're still getting in there one way or the other. And those switches are right handy, right on the back side, where you can, of course, you could leave them on and not have to worry, or cut them off and join the wires together, and that would leave the ESCs on all the time. So it's going to work out. So,
Good.
But that, and I'll probably do the same on the 80 millimeter that I got for my Type 7 sub. I'll just go ahead and wire it up the same way, and then use the exterior servo for the dive planes and forward.
Yep.
But I'm very pleased with it. It's the way it's put together, and it's sealed up really well. I've already dunked my 70 millimeter. Took it out and dropped it in about 4 feet of water, and just left it for 2 or 3 minutes, and no problem with leakage at all on it. So very happy with it.
Good. Glad to hear. And hey, on that topic, update on our cylinders. We're doing our cylinder orders in batches of 4 right now. We're getting pretty good at it. And like for some of the early people, there's like your prototype, and then like your production version 1.0, production version 1.1. It's like every time we do a cylinder, we figure out something better. So they're getting better and better as they go. But to put things in perspective, like our cylinders are not cheap, but they come fully assembled, fully tested. All the subsystems have been checked out. Again, learned from the best. Merriman taught me well. Everything is checked before it goes out. So they're quote unquote certified. But the difference is 4 servos versus 2 servos, full size versus micro, ballast capacity and flexibility versus static. Those R&R cylinders are basically half the price of the cylinders that I offer. So they fill a niche, and I'm happy to put my name next to it. I think Ron does great work. So
one more question on your 80 millimeter, and you've got the 2 motors, and you're using one of those Viper 10, the smaller one, ESCs. Is that going to be okay for both those motors?
I'd be surprised if those 2 little baby motors pulled 10 amps. I mean, if they're pulling more than 10 amps, you've got a bigger problem than your ESC size.
Okay, I was thinking about maybe upgrading at least the drive motors to the larger ESC, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. I mean, you absolutely can, but there's always overkill. It's like these people, they got the little like 2.5-inch cylinder, and they put like 8-gauge wire, because they figure bigger is better. It's all about appropriate sizing. I'd be surprised if each one of those motors pulled under full load, maybe 2 or 3 amps. What do you figure, Dave? You probably know better than me. So, they would have to be fully stalled, to blow that, in which case you want it to blow anyway. So that's probably a better thing to have the Marine 10 versus the sub 10.
The 280 stalled will pull maybe an amp.
Oh, there you go, 1 amp. So
should be okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So Randy, I see you hovering in the corner there. What's your thought about a Collins class? I got another inquiry from another person on Collins class submarine for 3D files.
This is just a shelled version, but working on the bow and how it's going to connect.
Nice.
Working on it.
You know, that I'm super surprised. You know, those Australians are prolific builders. There's not a ton of them around. They got a big country to play around in, but boy, oh boy, they like their submarines. I think I need to take a research trip down there for a month or two.
Well, if you're flying down, take me down and we can work on the Collins together.
Yeah, exactly. My wife spent, this is a good story. This is totally off topic, but it's my show, so you have to listen. So my wife spent 9 months when she was 18 years old in Australia. She graduated high school early, and her boyfriend at the time and her went down to Australia for like a backpacking, you know, life building excursion to Australia for 9 months. 2 weeks into the trip, they broke up. And they got to spend the next, 9 months together, hating each other as they traveled across all of Australia. So that was a character building. She was a self-professed princess before she left. There's nothing more character building than giving yourself $5 a day budget, living in a hostel, eating Kraft macaroni and cheese, and having to harvest cauliflowers and stuff like that just to earn enough money to make it to the next town. That was
You're on a walkabout.
What was that? Right?
Well,
Walkabout.
It's either that or Paris Island.
Yeah, been there, done that, Bob. That's how I started when I first got out here.
There you go.
But yeah, you'd be very, very welcome down here. I think there's a few guys down here who'd love to give you a tour of the country. Yeah,
tour of the country. That's a
hell yeah.
I'll take you up on that.
Well,
Hey, Bob.
we've got a few guys in Sydney. We've got some up in Queensland. I know we've got some down in Victoria. I know there's some guys over in WA. So we pretty much guarantee you'd be able to be hosted in pretty much every state of the country.
Well, there you go. It's like a business write-off. Now I just need to find the cash.
Hey, Bob.
Picking for about 6 months.
Yeah. All right, who's yelling at me?
Bill, I just wanted to thank Steve for helping me with my 3D printer. He helped me get my 3D printer set up and running, and I sent him an email with a picture of a new cradle for my 235, the Gato, whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have done it without him. So I want to make sure everybody knows he helped me tremendously.
Shout out to Steve.
You're welcome.
Good stuff. That's awesome.
Hey, Ed. Sub Ed,
Yeah, I'm here.
how you liking Texas?
Loving it.
Good, okay.
Loving it.
Checking.
A little cold today. It's
Yeah.
been like in the 20s this past week.
What?
The Chihuahuas are not too happy about that, nor is any glue or 3D printers out in the shed. But it's really great because last Sunday it was 70 and I was running a boat. So
Well, I don't know if anybody, I've shown pictures of this park that's in my city, and when I get this sub going, I'm going to take it out there a couple of weekends and hopefully get some more sub drivers from people say, oh my God, what is that? Oh, I want one. So we'll see.
that's definitely the way to do it. I tell you, Steve's here, his screen is off. He was checking the weight. He did some testing, and in fact, I threw the video up on the forums. You can actually see Steve testing the Nautilus he got, the USS Nautilus, used to determine the ballast tank. And I tell you, the surface guys are just, you can hear them like, I gotta get me a sub. You just go there, you do your thing, and they come. It's just because it takes the mystery out of it. It takes the whole mystery about it. You can't see it, or or, you know, how it operates, and they just see the next level. You know, I don't know how to explain it any better, but
Before the summer got, I brought that boat I bought from Bob 2 years ago, and they freaked out over that. So I think the local hobby shop got a bunch of inquiries about surface ships, but hopefully you can do the same thing for subs this summer.
get out. All I can say is get out there and run as often as you can. It's great to sit here and talk and build. I mean, build is the best part too, but you got to get out there and you got to run. You know, that's what brings them in when they see it in action. You know,
it's a
they
thing that
get very impressed.
We all need to understand that when we bring our boats out, you know, regardless of whether we're doing it consciously or not, we're ambassadors for the hobby. You know, if we are forthcoming with information, you know, if we're friendly and we're answering questions, then, you know, they get this mental picture in their head about what it's like to be a, you know, a submarine skipper. But, you know, and I've seen it, you know, you got some standoffish people, you know, out there, and they just got their noses in the air because they got a sub and everybody else is running surface crafts. And, you know, they just run their boat off to the side and don't answer any questions. And we just need to realize that, you know, everything we do is reflective on the hobby. And if we want more blood, you know, we just need to be cognizant of that when we interact with people. And I'm sure, you know, for the most part, 99% of us are, but it's just next time you're out there, just understand it's like.
Well, that was my next and final point, was if somebody asks a question, take the top off of it and explain it to them, how it works.
Yeah.
You know, I would take my ham radio stuff to schools and stuff and set it up, and they would wonder how it worked, and I explained it to them. I mean, you know, it's just explain it to them, show them how it works, and you get more interest.
You just got to make sure it's not like Steve Hodges' Nautilus or something. You open it up and it looks like the beating heart of a nuclear weapon or something.
Yeah.
I have a general question. I'm going to be building a Gatto class fleet sub, and all of the pictures I've looked at with the subs, they're either close to port or just leaving port or something. They all have the deck configured with the handrails. And I was wondering, how are the decks configured for combat patrols? Do they take all the handrails off the deck to streamline the boat?
I think so, but I'm sure there's an expert here somewhere who'd be able to answer that.
Not all of them. There'd still be some lifelines around the sail.
They left them on.
Okay.
That's super interesting. Now, did they leave it on strictly for convenience, or because the shipyard welded them on, or were they lazy, or did they just not understand hydrodynamics?
Well, I think it was just a total pain in the ass to take them down. You know, they just said to hell with it. And I don't know. I'm going to, you know, I'll defer to David on this, but I don't know what the impact was on underwater speed, but I think it was probably negligible.
It wasn't underwater speed. All right.
Speed to submerge, get off the deck.
I qualified on a diesel boat, okay? Now, it was a guppy, which is not the diesel boats you see in World War II films. But when you see a diesel boat of that era, you're looking at a boat coming in or going out of port or heading towards a patrol area before they've hit the channel. All the lifelines are up. Now, on patrol, they took a lot of them down. Not all of them. Typically left lifelines around the sail up. And yeah, they are a bitch to take down, but they are portable.
Do they store them in the sail?
In the bilges. They go down in the engine room bilges.
That's crazy to me. That's awesome. You know, and I have, you know, to Maury's point, like I have to think they would have a appreciable impact on the performance of the boat. Like I know with my aircraft, just adding a step to get up onto the wing, it takes like a knot or two off of your speed.
It wasn't the hydrodynamics, it was the noise.
Ah, there you go.
Those things sing in the wind.
Yeah, because now you had, obviously you had the railings, but did they use cables in between? Was it steel cable?
Damn right. You got a tuning fork out there.
That's got to flap around like a bastard out there.
Yeah, the same thing with the prop guards that they used in port. They would take, some of them would take them off or have them removed and put portable ones on.
Oh, you're talking about those like the framework over on the top to stop people from falling off the top and into the props?
No, that was to keep the tugs away from the props.
Oh, okay.
Those were primarily there during maintenance and overhaul periods to protect the props. But some submarines kept them on when they went on patrol.
Interesting. So realistically, you could omit those and you'd be historically accurate.
That's correct. But you got to take a look at the different submarines. Like I say, some of them actually kept them on permanently. The other ones were put on with, tack welded on and taken off when they were through their maintenance period.
Yeah, there were the original ones that were put on when the boat was built, and some of those were removed on other boats and replaced with a bolt-on type of guard that could be taken off once you're out away from the harbor, and that would make the boat much quieter submerged. So there all kinds of different configurations with all these boats. No boat was exactly the same.
So those are not insignificant frames. I mean, I bolt on or bolt off is one thing, but I mean, those are like significant in terms of size and weight. Like that's kind of crazy that they take them off and store them somewhere.
Well, they were normally taken off before you got underway. There's no way you could do that once you were underway.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so they keep them at port. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Like the brow.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
Super interesting. There you go.
But as far as guardrails go, first submarine I served on was an old fleet boat out of San Diego. And we had 3 guys that were on there originally when the boat was launched in 44 and made its first war patrol in January of 45. They were still on board that submarine when I went aboard it. And it was interesting listening to them talk about their experiences and all that. But one of the things they did mention to me was on that particular boat, the USS Bagheera, SS-331, they kept the rails up around the sail. And those were tight cables, just for the reason that David was saying that you don't want them singing in the water to give your noise away. But that was one of the things I remembered about that. Was just a quick sea story. When I was in submarine school, everybody was trying to go to the nuclear boats. We were building 41 FBMs, and they were the ithe priorities for crews and all that, and everybody wanted to go to them. And I was sitting there thinking, this was 1962. It'd be nice someday to be able to say, geez, I qualified on the old fleet boats. And when I left the Navy in 1996, I was the last submariner on active duty that qualified on a conventional submarine. So I just, could stick around long enough, but I never thought that was what would happen. But I definitely wanted to go to a fleet boat. And the nice thing about a fleet boat, there wasn't any place in the world or any liberty ports you couldn't go to. Back in the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot of places that wouldn't allow a nuclear submarine into their harbor.
How do you define a fleet boat?
World War II, Gato and Vallejo class, primarily the Tambor class.
And Tench.
Now, how about the German boats? Do you
No,
or is it just U.S. boats?
I wouldn't call it. The reason that we called them fleet boats was they were capable of going 10,000 miles on a patrol. German boats never had that range.
As envisioned between the wars, we were looking at the same thing the Japanese was having fleet operations with a vanguard of submarines at the
Right.
lead.
And,
So
and
you're
plus,
part of the fleet.
and plus the fact that we were doing more in the Pacific, which is, it's, you can take the Atlantic Ocean and put it 3 times into the Pacific.
Okay, so it was US specific for 10,000 miles. Nautical miles.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's what they were designed for.
Thank you.
What got me thinking about this was I heard stories about crew members. They didn't want to come on deck because they were afraid of getting washed overboard. And I started thinking about whether or not they had, the railings up while they were on patrol.
Safety tracks,
I'm sorry, David, what was that?
safety tracks and harnesses.
I'm not sure they had them during World War II, did they, David? I thought that came out of when they did the snorkel conversions of guppies.
Good point. Good point. I can't say definitively if they had them during the war. They certainly
Yeah,
had them on guppies.
I don't recall seeing any photos showing any type of harness devices, although it could have been.
No, I haven't seen any either. And they would only come up and sit on the, or go onto the cigarette deck rather than on the main deck.
Well, when you're in the way on a fleet boat, and David certainly remembers this as well, is that your main deck, if you're doing anything above 5 knots, that main deck is wet.
Yeah. That's where you learn the term green in green water.
Yep.
You take a wave and all of a sudden you're wrapped around the main induction way back in the sail.
I'm going to have to do some more research. I'm going to build a model. My model is going to be a model of the drum, and I want to try to figure out how it was configured during combat patrol.
You talking about the drum that's in Mobile?
Correct. Yes.
Where do you live?
I live on the East Coast, up in Maryland, not very close to it. And I think the drum that is in Mobile has a museum. So I'm going to contact them and ask them about some of these questions. I don't know if the boat that's that they've redone is done in combat condition.
I've got a slew. My wife and kids took a trip down there years ago. I've got a slew of pictures somewhere. I'll send to you if I can find them.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I've seen videos of the museum and the boat. They're very interesting during the when they were refurbishing it.
Yeah, they did a real volunteers and a lot of the people that actually served on those boats refurbished it and did a fantastic job because it was really going to pot.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the input.
Speaking of, one more question. Isn't the USS Ling, isn't that the one that's in Kentucky or something, or landlocked someplace? Which boat is that?
The Ling's in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Is that the one that they can't get out because?
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys working on it to try and get it sort of ship shape so they can get it out of the river. And
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going to bring it. There's a Facebook page for it that these guys run that they keep on. There's a couple of different groups. There's the original group that had possession of it, and there's like battles going on between the groups. There's a group from, I don't know, Kentucky or somewheres in the Mississippi or area that they want to take the boat there. And there's a bit of a battle going on between the different groups.
Well, imagine that. People aren't happy unless they're fussing. Anyway, I thank you.
Hey, I wanted to.
I have a.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, you're more important. Than me.
Yes. Sorry. I had a question about those fuses actually. So the fuse that you saw on your website, Bob, the I think the 10 amp or something like that. Is that waterproof? Can that be put in the wet? The mini fuse holder, 16 amp, 16 gauge, 30 centimeter leads on your website. Can that be put in the wet?
I mean, I think the short answer is yeah. You know,
Okay.
we run electrical connections in the wet all the time. You know, if you got a sealed lead acid battery, you can write it in. You just need to watch corrosion over time. The way that they come, they have a like a rubber cap that can snap over them. I wouldn't call it waterproof. I would call it like water resistant, but you know, if you wanted to keep it out there and easily accessible, if you just put a quick bead of silicone around and snapped it shut, let it cure. I mean, obviously, if your boat stops, you know what happened. So you could literally just pop that off, check the fuse, and then re-caulk it again.
Okay,
so
cool.
The short answer is I wouldn't necessarily run it as it is wet, but the assembly as it comes could easily be made to be waterproof.
Okay. And then for the remote on-off switch that you sell, did you say that those have fuses in them?
They've got built-in like trips, I guess, what you could call them. So Kevin's is really nice because his MM15, the magnetic one. So if you, let's say you go full throttle and for whatever reason you got bindage in your drivetrain and you exceed the 15 amp capacity, it'll trip the breaker, kill the power. As soon as you remove that load, so for example, if you were to neutral the throttle, it starts a bit of a countdown and then the fuse resets. So then you got power again. So you're not dead in the water. Out in the middle, whereas the remote switches that I offer, those are like, nope, you're done. You have to cut power and then reapply power in order for them to like reset their internal fuses.
So you got to unplug the battery, plug it back in.
And we talked about this before. I think it was maybe like 2 dive tribes ago or 3 dive tribes ago. These what do you call them? The self-resetting fuses. Somebody was talking about those. I think I
thermal reset.
Thermal reset. So yeah, same idea. So they trip, and then provided you remove the load, they'll reset themselves, and then you're back in business again. So kind of important from a submarine perspective. I have an awesome video I'm going to be uploading of the last time we took the 72nd scale sea wolf out. So what ended up happening is like a dipstick, we were in a rush and we didn't do what I tell all of you to do and run through your checklist before you go out to the pond. We didn't check the battery, and the battery was low. And the ESC didn't have enough juice to power the drive motor, but it had enough to operate the servos. And so we got it out to the middle of the pond and it died. And so we literally waggled the rudder back and forth like a little oar, and we paddled our way back to shore like a wounded duck. It took like 10 minutes, but we managed to paddle it all the way back to shore again. We got all on video. It was pretty awesome. So I'll be posting that shortly.
It's called sculling. When you
sculling. Oh, I'm glad there's a technical term. Now I don't feel so bad.
Sailboat guys know all about that.
Yeah, I was practicing my sculling. I didn't mess up my boat. I was sculling.
Yeah, the gondolas in Venice, the gondola guys do that sculling thing.
Yeah. The little. I'd like to see that on a full-size nuclear submarine. Let's see them limping back into port using their rudder.
I'll tell you that large area on the skipjack, I've sailed that Devore back in with the wind. The body of the boat acting like a keel, and you just directed it properly, angle of attack with the rudder, and got a good broad reach. She came in.
Yep. You don't think about that with submarines. I did the same thing with an upholder. And obviously, if you want to talk about sail surface area, now we're talking.
Yeah, they don't call it a sail for nothing.
that Gulf. Bob, that was a big sail.
That was a big sail. So yeah, Michael, to answer your question, yeah, that's what we're looking at there.
Okay, cool. So if I had the on-off switch, I wouldn't need a fuse holder.
I'd recommend it. Yeah, you know, and it's like we talked about at the beginning, you know, just protect your electronics, you know, it just makes, and not just your electronics, but your wiring and everything. If you want anything to go, it needs to be the point of you know, least resistance, and you want that to be the fuse and not a very expensive, you know, $60, $70, $80 electronic module.
Okay, I'll get the fuse then.
All these little fuses, you can, you know, the fuse isn't in there, but you just clamp that shut.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what I was talking about. So you see, it actually it snaps down, and I don't know that it's waterproof, but it's probably water resistant. And if you just put a little, you might even be able to get away with grease. But
you can put RTV.
I have some RTV I could put on it.
Yeah, put RTV around it and that'll waterproof it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Because my boat right now, I have to admit, does not have a fuse, but it hasn't been in the water yet, so it's not quite right.
That doesn't matter. If you apply power, it's gonna
yeah
the capability of smoking.
Well, I've gotten lucky so far, so I'll be buying that fuse today.
All right.
Cheap insurance. Cheap
Murphy's
insurance.
always watching.
Yep.
Hey, I'd like to discuss the O-rings we were talking about last time. Remember who was it was discussing the different diameter of the O-rings? I went and purchased silicone. It's not electrical, silicone O-rings, 50 diameter, and they're red. Okay, they're red color, and they seem a lot softer. It seems that the bulk, we're talking obviously of the Alpha that I have. I'm replacing them on the Alpha, and it seems to pop on smoothly, a lot easier to get off. And just looking at it, because it's somewhat soft, it seems to conform better to the irregularities on the inside. So is there been any more word on that? I noticed that Rob's WTC has red O-rings.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, are those silicone?
Yep.
And do you seem to be getting a better seal on the pore tolerance of the cylinders?
I'm running the red silicone O-rings on mine, and I order a lot of them from McMaster.
Yeah, that's what I got.
And I order them in different diameters. In fact, that not O-rings, but I ordered some of silicone sheet, and for making the the main vent valve for the ballast tank. And I'm actually using 10 diameter on that. It's super soft.
Wow, yeah, that's like mush.
Very
gummy
sticky.
bear. It's a gummy bear.
It's really sticky, and if there's any sort of misalignment, it doesn't care.
So you know, to that point, a durometer is durometer. That's an independent evaluation of the softness of a material. So it doesn't matter if it's rubber or silicone or whatever. If it's a 50 durometer, it's a 50 durometer. It will you know deflect or whatever a certain amount under a certain force under certain conditions, regardless of what the material is. The thing I like about silicone, obviously, there's almost an inherent like lubricant quality to silicone rubber, which kind of makes it a little bit easier to get them on and off with. You just need to watch, you know, the lubricants that you use on all of these different O-rings and seals that you have. One thing that I did notice on mine, I got those cup seals, right, for the linkage seals. And I don't know what material they're made out of, but if you leave them on the shaft, you know, for a certain amount of time, they'll like stick a little bit, and then you break them free and they're perfectly smooth. But the problem is, you know, we press fit them into the outer body, and so if they stick and you go to push it out, it'll push the seal out, and now you've got like you know, a nice passage for water to flood into your cylinder. So really important to make sure that they're lubricated properly, so you don't get that initial seize you know,
Those,
seizure.
those cup seals are typically Buna N, which is natural rubber, and they do not respond well to petroleum lubricants.
No, it needs to be silicone based.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and you need to watch if I'm not mistaken, the seals, those silicone seals, if you use, actually, I think if you use a silicone based oil, they'll swell. Is that right? Does that sound right? I think Ron had sent me something about that. You just need to watch, you know, make sure, I'm just going to tell you, make sure whatever lubricant you use is compatible with the seals you're putting them on. And there's two schools of thought from like main bulkhead seals. One is just keep them clean, press them in, press them out, and you're done. And the other one is grease the snot out of them so that they move nicely. I know OTW in their like instructions say do not use grease, because grease will trap dust, dirt, and particulates against the seal. So when you squeeze it tight, you've got a gap that you're going to be unable to seal against, regardless of how much pressure you put with those nuts that you use. So I think the most important thing, or the lesson to take away, make sure that your seals and the surface that they seal against are clean, regardless of whether you use lubricants or greases or not.
And silicone seems to pick up like even if when they're dry, and I think it also depends on the durometer, but it seems like they just tend to pick up a lot of dust and cat hair and junk.
Well, you know, the solution to that is get rid of the cat
or shave them.
Yeah.
But one other, just while we're talking about O-rings, you know, when you're designing like typical application of an O-ring, when you're designing like the groove, you're designing for you know, rotational or what is it, dynamic movement. For what we're doing, we're just using them as a static seal, and yeah, you're sliding stuff on and off of them. This isn't the proper way to design an O-ring groove, but what I do is I'll as far as the silicone rings go, it really doesn't matter what type they are, is I'll use different, you know, first I'll design the groove properly, but because of the differences in these, you know, whether it's Lexan tubes or acrylic, especially if they're cast or drawn, they vary all over the place as far as tolerance goes. I like what you're doing by sandwiching the O-ring. It's really a great way to go. In the case of the radial seal, that's depending on that compression, just slightly changing the size of the O-ring, the diameter, you know, same cross section, but just the diameter, you can get for those irregularities in the tube. You can adjust how much seal you have, how much compression, and you can visually see that just looking at the outside of the tube.
Yeah.
How squished is it? And
Nick,
so what I've had to do recently on that cylinder I'm doing, all the O-ring grooves are consistent across all the end caps or bulkheads, but because the tube itself differs on ID, I've had to use slightly different O-ring diameters at different points to control how much squish, how much seal I have when at the final.
That's a pain in the ass. Wow.
It really is. But I mean, once you figure it out, once you get that sizing down, the whole thing just slides in and out really easy. But yeah, I'm bringing that up as just one way. If somebody runs into that issue, they can try changing this O-ring sizing to get a little bit better seal or a little bit less seal.
Nick, you know what I do?
What's that?
And a lot of times with those end caps, when they go on, it's a flat surface to a flat surface with the O-ring in there. So if you tighten it wrong, or they want to squish out. So the ID of the tube, I put a 45 in there. Now, as you tighten it, it's wanting to push it down. It's going to jam itself into two surfaces, and it's really forgiving that way, and it really seals well, especially if you get a softer O-ring.
What, Frank, what
Yeah,
you mean
yeah.
is that you're chamfering the inside of the tube?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And he's sealing on the chamfer and not the ID, if I understand it
Right.
correctly.
Well, that chamfer is pushing it in two directions now, and it's really squashing it in there.
Yeah.
It's
so that-
pushing it into a V.
That
Yeah.
beautiful Type 21 that I had with that scratch built cylinder used that methodology. So it was 1/8 wall acrylic tubing, chamfered out on the inside at 45 degrees. So when that seal was on the inside and it was being pushed in, it was sealing actually on 3 surfaces. It was on the pushing surface, the bottom surface, and then the chamfer surface.
It's
and
wedging
then-
itself. It's wedging itself in there.
Yeah, the tighter you go, the more it squishes out and flattens and increases the surface area. So that would really be sort of the ideal way of going about it. But that's a lot more precision machining, to undertake than probably what a lot of people have the capabilities of doing.
Oh, if someone had a groove in their end cap or one of their middle caps, and they had an issue with the O-ring, what about if you ran a small amount of, say, plumber's tape in the bottom of the grooves, even just one thin layer, and then put the O-ring backing over that, just to give a bit more pressure to that irregularity of the polycarb.
Yep.
That's been, that trick's used in for steam engines.
Speaking of lubricant, I found this on Amazon, Super Lube O-ring silicone. It's Dave Merriman approved, boys.
Taken out of context, that's so bad.
F you, Casey.
Hey, we're being recorded. Knock it off.
All right, I got a couple minutes, but again, I can leave you guys all talk when you go. So it's your last chance to hurl insults or questions at me before I sign off.
I got a question for Nick. I've been following his waterproofing servos, and from what I gained from what he was saying, it really wasn't that necessary. Am I correct in my assumption there, Nick? Or
No, it's definitely. Are you talking about the little transparent blue SG micro servos?
yes.
Yeah, no. Myself and a number of others here have experience messing with those. I was trying to create a waterproof servo, which it still works great. And I'm still may use one of them. But I'm kind of abandoned that because I think it's the quality of manufacture of those servos. I'm seeing, not high current draws, but for example, I had a batch of 10 of these things. The current draw stock unmodified was pretty much similar across all of them. I had a non-knockoff version of it that had probably half the current draw that the knockoffs had. And when you start waterproofing them and putting mineral oil in them and O-rings under the servo horns, that current draw goes higher. What I wound up doing is I wound up just using the Savox Metal Gear digital IP67 rated servos. Really the ones that I would, if I was going to recommend something like that, would be the high tech IP67 ones. I went with the Savox because that's what was available. It seemed like the high techs were out of stock everywhere.
They're about $50, aren't they?
$50 each?
I think the high techs are 50, and I think the Savox ones, which they're great servos, they're about $36. I took them apart, inspected them. They're really well made, and it's a bit slightly bigger servo. Like those SGs are sub micro, and the Savox and the high tech ones are micro. But the micro, where I'm going with this is the micro servo, and they're bigger motor and everything else, draws like a fraction of the current that one of those little SGs pull. It just seems to me like out of the box, it's a higher quality, better made servo. And so if I was going to invest any more time into making it further waterproof, that would be a good foundation to start with.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
I run those high techs. I did 3 of them in my last Nautilus build there, and I did that strictly for time because I didn't want to go through the manual process of waterproofing all those different servos. I honestly, they're great. Those high tech servos. You know, the additional cost is kind of offset by the ease of installation and the flexibility of placement. You know, to not have to run linkages throughout the course of your boat. You can literally mount them like under the control surface, and it would work. I'm gonna have one more comment, and then I'm gonna take off. I switched from those cheap Chinese, you know, blue clear servos. I was using them for my ballast actuation in my 300 series sub drivers. they got cheap plastic gears inside. They're, you know, they're probably 99-cent servos. You know, you can find them for cheap if you buy them in bulk. I switched to metal gear servos, much higher quality. They got better torque, better reliability. But when I did that, the servo direction is opposite. Now, normally not an issue, except the 2IS switch that Kevin produces is designed for blow one direction, vent one direction. So now when I went to go vent, it would kick the pump on and it would be blowing air in. So I had to buy a separate module to reverse the servo direction, which is fine. It was like $3 or $4, but it's just something to note. There's no standardized methodology for servo construction. They're like all across the board. If that kind of thing is important to you, and typically it wouldn't be because you could literally just switch direction on your transmitter. But just keep that in mind. Not all servos are created equal. As Nick mentioned, current draw, you know, reliability, all of these things are so different between each one. So just kind of bear that in mind. You learn as you go, and you'll settle on one that you like and just stick with that one. All right, any last chance, and then I'm gonna sign off and leave you to your Saturday.
Bob, the brushless speed controls you have, the Heli, is that the brand? Are they pre-programmed, or do we have to program them for neutral?
So so Nick helped me out with this, and he did hours of work doing this. So the BL Heli 32s that I was running before, I had no problem programming, and they got tons of different functionality that you can program into them. They're like, you can't find them. I don't know where they're at anymore if they're not being made. So we found these like other ones that are like earlier versions, but the programmers can't handle them. And so Nick had to do tons of research and move things and do the long and short of it, we're still selling them. They're going to come standard in all of the dual motor sub drivers that I offer. I found different ESCs for single motor application, which have built-in DECs. But for two, they're quite large. For the dual motor, I'm still using the BL Helis because they're nice and small and compact, and actually they work really, really well. I can't believe that something the size of a postage stamp is driving these big, you know, brushless motors. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, just one thing to add. So the BL Heli 32s, those are what is it? It's a proprietary software, whereas the BL Heli S's, and that's the ones that we just did a programming batch are, that's open source. Same company, they function the same. It's just one's open source, so anybody can write code for it. The other one, they have to be licensed. When I set up the batch for Bob's recent batch, I couldn't tell any difference between the way the S's ran versus the 32s. And some people swear by the S's that the throttle curve or stepping is a lot more smooth.
Which we would never see in our submarines anyway, so. Yeah.
So the bottom line is Nick is programming the ones you're selling so they come ready to go.
Anything you buy from me will be ready to go, to answer your question. You do not need to do programming, plug it in, they're bi-directional, 100% ready to go. Yep.
There we go. That's it.
Yep.
I'm not gonna mess it up playing with programming.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna leave you guys be. Thanks for joining me. I'm gonna pass things over to Dave to edit and mute you guys while I'm gone. Recording will end here because I'm recording on my computer, but I'll post this up and I'll try and dig up those other ones too, because Frank showed me that I was slacking or didn't hit publish on my site or whatever. But again, all those videos are posted up on the DiveTribe homepage if you guys want to go back and take a look at them after. So have an awesome day.
Thanks, Bob. Bye-bye.
Later.
Thanks.
Be good. See you on the 19th.
There you go.